Welcome to the channel. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Join me today for a review on yet another Steeldive watch. Now this watch has popped up in the comment section quite a few times, so I've got it in and I ordered 3 colors. So this is the SD1979 and it is a Squale homage, but as I like to call it, Squalaay. That's a little Easter egg for the old school rap fans. If you know, you know. So let's start with the review. So as you can see, I have finally managed to get the Steeldive 1979 in, much to the joy of a few subs watching, and one in particular, no names mentioned. You've been pestering me to get this watch on my channel, so there we have it, and I got them in all 3 colors. Before I begin the review, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Support the channel, it is appreciated. Please also look at the description below, and you'll see the links for Aliexpress posted for the watch. I'll also add a couple of my own links. So I think we should get started with the one in the blue. We'll put the black and the green to the side. So we'll begin with the blue SD1979. It's worth mentioning at this point that this is the 2020 upgraded version. So this comes with a few upgrades, which I will cover as I start reviewing the watch. Before we get into that, let's cover the dimensions. So your diameter is 42.5 mil across the case. You've got a quite large 51 mil lug to lug with a 13.2 mil thick case, and you've got 22 mil lug width. A few specs: ceramic bezel insert. You've got a stainless steel bead blasted or sand blasted case. It runs a NH35 movement, which is hand winding and hacking from Seiko. You've also got a domed sapphire crystal with AR coating, and this watch does come with a stainless steel bracelet. And from Steeldive, you've got a host of other options. You've got the silicone straps, you've got the Steeldive branded silicone straps, you also have got NATO options. Now, before I go into the details of the watch, I think it's important to mention that this review, just around this particular model, is uncharted waters for me. Those of you that are familiar with the channel and that have subscribed for a while now, you'll know early on when I was collecting watches, when I started, I polarized myself to just the Seiko brand. So pretty much all the watches that I do are Seiko homages. Now that gives me a benchmark. So in the back of my mind, when I'm reviewing a watch, my benchmark is the Seiko watch. With this being a homage of the Squale, I have no idea what the original Squale feels like, how it runs, you know, all that detail around it. So this review, I'm going to call it as I see it. I did do a slight bit of research on the actual Squale, so if I see any similarities or any comparison notes, it will be mentioned in the review. So I did a quick Google of the actual watch, the Squale 1521, which this is a homage of, and straight away from the first impressions you can tell it is very close to the original. You've got a similar dial style, and the hands are very similar to the actual Squale, and the case shape and the position of the crown, etc, etc. So if we go to the dial, you'll see it is a flat dial with printed indices, and the AR coating kind of confuses it a bit, but the dial is actually matte. There's no sunray pattern or sunburst pattern to the actual dial. You've got a dial date window at the 3 o'clock position, your Steeldive logo at the 12, and automatic 200 meters at the 6. The indices themselves are well aligned with the minute track, because the minute track is actually printed on the dial. There is no chapter ring, but the way the case is made, if you turn, you can't actually see much of a gap along the side. Usually, for example, in the SD1970, the Captain Willard homage, you can actually see a visible blank chapter ring. In this, however you can't. The bezel insert itself is a sloped ceramic bezel insert. The quality of the dial is good, usual Steeldive standard for you there. The bezel itself is a coin edge bezel. Let's check the action. So the bezel action is quite nice. It's quite smooth. There's no, it's not too tight and it's not too loose. Now you do have a fair bit of backplay on this. I'd say it's a 120 click bezel, so I'd say just a full click, you can, you know, get some backplay on that. However, it's seated well. I mean, it's not loose. There's not much movement in it at all. So maybe due to the mechanism, you've got that backplay. But like I said, it does line up. The clicking is smooth. The action is relatively smooth. So I think this watch will get away with that. The coin edge, nice, decent feel. The case is finished. It's been sandblasted or bead blasted. So you do have this really matte / satiny look to the actual case. The first thing I noticed was when I picked up the box, when they came through the mail, I thought, wow, that's heavy. I thought there may be 2 watches in there or something. So taking it out, yeah, it's got a fair bit of weight. I think it's close to 200 grams, but that is going to be because of the actual bracelet as well. I don't know if I mentioned, from Steeldive you can get a few different versions, and they do have this one in a stainless steel bracelet. The bracelet itself is a, you must be familiar with this style. It's called a hex add style bracelet, and you not Miltat, sorry, they're called Strap Code. Strap Code do a version of this bracelet as well. So nice bit of weight to the watch. I'd assumed looking at the pictures that it might have been a smaller watch, but going from the dimensions, 42.5 mil is quite large, and the log to log 51 mil it is a fairly large watch. But it's just, I think I just assumed it would have been a bit smaller. I like that they've gone with a 22 mil lug width, just to give a better balance when you do wear the watch on your wrist. Now another point that I saw in the actual original was the crown. It looked quite small, and likewise in this SD1979 it is a small crown, and it is recessed into the actual case. Now with that, screwing it out, yeah, if you've got, you know, like fat chunky fingertips, you are going to struggle getting this crown open. My fingers are quite slender, they're not as chunky. However, I'm finding it's not the best, it's not the easiest, to be honest. So you've got the NH35 Seiko Movement in here. So it hand winds and it hacks where the second hand stops, so you can set your time. Single click will enable you to change the date. So the one, you know, the movement is solid and robust. Of course, the original watch runs a ETA 28242 Swiss movement, which is a high beat movement, giving you 8 ticks per second. So screwing the crown down, it is a bit, you know, you are going to struggle because just it's so tiny, and the actual bezel gets in the way because it's recessed. So that is, you know what, yeah, it's proving to be slightly difficult. The threading actually itself is not an issue, it's just getting a decent enough grip on it to get it to screw down. Come on, there we go. And okay, I think it has screwed down now. Yep. Turning it around the case back, you've got your Steeldive logo with the specifications: 200 meters water resistance, NH35, stainless steel, made by Steeldive. Perfect. I mentioned this watch was the 2020 upgraded version. So the upgrades are, you've got a domed AR coated sapphire crystal as opposed to a flat one in the version 1. They also had a reported quality issue where they had a loomed pip at the 12 on the bezel insert, which kept falling out. So now they've removed that and they've gone for this style of bezel insert, and they've put a signed crown on there. Now, yeah, crown's a bit of an issue. The bracelet itself, it's a normal bracelet. You can get these bracelets from Aliexpress yourself. I think they're about £8 to £12 from Aliexpress. So it's not Steeldive's own bracelet or something which they've had made. They've just ordered it from a different supplier. With that, the clasp will be stamped. Not a fan of these style of clasps. I mean, they're not. It's not that they're weak. I think they just look rubbish. And I think a lot of people prefer the milled clasp now. So within the Homage game, that is sort of the standard now. So I think it's something for Steeldive to look into in the future, and just to, you know, put some more money in and replace the clasps. Saying that, the price of the watch, the cheapest you can get on AliExpress is around 112, so 114. So it's not too cheap. I think there's still room to add, you know, the clasp in possibly. So that shouldn't really impact the price of the watch. Comparisons in terms of size. So looking at the specs I found on the internet with the actual Squale, the diameter is 48.5. Sorry, no it isn't. The diameter is 42 on the Squale, 13mm thickness. So this 1979 dimensionally it matches the original. The only differences I found was the actual Squale comes with a 48.5mm lug to lug, and this one, the 1979, is at 51. So I don't know why that is, why they made it a bit bigger. I would have preferred it to be at 48.5, just so it fits the smaller wrists a lot better. Just have a quick look around the case. It has been machined really well. There's no sharpness, there's no sharp edges. Even actually the inside of the lugs, it's not as bad as they are on some of the other watches. So pretty smooth finish. I think with this sandblasting and the bead blasting, you don't get those brushed lines, as you can see here. So you won't see any circular brushing or linear brushing, but on the bracelet you can see you have linear brushing present. Overall, the quality of the case is usual Steeldive standard, pretty good. The bracelet itself is okay as well, no sharp edges, pretty solid bracelet. I think it's about time we take a look of how it sits on the wrist. They actually do two types of bracelet. You can get this style, the hexad style, or they also do a engineer style. I think it's one of the smaller links. I chose this one. I think I prefer the look of this one. Wasn't too much of a fan of that bracelet, but with the bracelets from Steeldive, they're not really specific to the watches. They just get a bunch of random bracelets and just stick them with the watch. Whereas Heimdall will get specific bracelets made, Proxima, San Martin, etc. So sitting on the wrist, I would have assumed it would have sat pretty bad because I've got a 6.5-inch wrist. However, even with the 51mm lug to lug, it does fit quite nice. It's central on the wrist. Obviously the bracelet hasn't been sized, so if it was to be sized, it'll fit well. There is a decent weight, as mentioned, decent weight on the watch. I prefer watches, well, I don't really have a preference. I don't mind them if they are a little bit light or if they do have a bit of weight. I know there are some people that do prefer either or. Overall, I think it's a pretty well built watch. think we need to have a look at the loom, see how the loom is on this particular model. So you've got usual Steeldive quality loom, you've got a BGW9 loom around the bezel insert, and your C3 Super Luminova on the actual dial and the hands. It's worth noting the loom is brighter on the actual hands than it is on the dial. The dial's loom is slightly dull in comparison to the hands. Overall, I'm happy with the loom, and I think people buying this, wearing it, will also be happy. So I'd say this SD1979 is doing pretty well so far. There's not a lot of bad points on the watch. So we've got now the other two colors available. Let's move the blue out the way. Let's have a look at the black and the green. As I have mentioned, the dials are matte dials. They're pretty flat. Let's check for consistency across the bezels. So yeah, again, smooth bezel action. Does this have the same back play? Yes, it does. So there's still the same amount of back play in it. However, the bezel action is actually great. So I can let that slide. I don't think that back play would really bother me if the bezel action is as good as this. I think the black looks really nice. It's a bit more standard. You can't really go wrong with black, of course. The green, the shade of green isn't too bright. I think it's actually subtle enough, but you can still see the color. It will stand out. You've got some greens on some watches that are just a bit too bright, and they just stick out like a sore thumb, really. So I can't really comment on how they compare with the original. I think anybody watching who has had a Squale can probably comment on that. So if you do see anything which is different, which is better, just let me know in the comment section. Just because the Squale is Swiss, I wouldn't like to make the assumption that it is better just because it is Swiss. To me, that doesn't really mean anything. You can have other watches that might be better. So on that side of the comparison, I can't really comment. Size-wise, this 1979 is pretty close, minus the lug to lug length. Improvements, good and bad points. Just having looked at it thoroughly now, I'd say the upgrades, there's a plus. I think the watch does look a lot better with the domed sapphire crystal. I think just the shape and the way the crystal and the bezel meet, and the bezel insert, sorry, gives it a really nice, slightly rounded look. It makes it look a bit more premium as well. What I don't like is, of course, the crown. Even though it is like the original, that's what they've done it. However, it's difficult to open and close. I'll be honest on that one. So anything else, I'd look at the case. Because it's such a large case, sorry, I would have preferred if they had drilled end lugs. Yeah, I mean, I think too often the issue with these Chinese brands is when they homage a watch, you know, they totally copy everything, every spec. However, on certain brands, on the Seikos, we see they try to improve. So whereas your genuine model did not have drilled end lugs, or, you know, because that's what the whole game is, right? With the homages, where they improve on the original. So with Seikos in particular, because they come with hard legs and they don't come with the ceramic bezels, the homage watches are really great because they'll upgrade. You've got an upgraded watch for, you know, a quarter of the price. So a lot of people, when they are modifying the original watches, they're adding another 100 to 200 pound, depending on what modifications they go for. So I think with that being the selling point of homage watches, and that USP, they can, or I think they should, just see a design and try to better it as they are doing with the Seikos. With this, you know, as mentioned, drill and lugs, and possibly improving on this, but it's not a deal breaker with the bezel movement. Positive note, I like the hands, I like the color combination used. Just the fact that they've added an orange in there, I think it will make the watch a bit more versatile and enable you to put it on a few different straps. And talking about straps and bracelets, you know, I do like to order a few different things here and there, accessories, bits and bobs. And what I did manage to, or what I've got at the moment, I've got some really nice Paratrooper straps. And just as I'm doing this review, I saw them and I thought, you know what, they seem to be a perfect match for the actual Squale. How interesting is that? So just have a look. This blue with the blue and orange strap, then you've got the green with this green, orange, and you've got the black, orange. I think they look fantastic. In fact, let's try a couple and see how they get on. Right, well, I think that was a pretty good shout on the bracelets. Sorry, the Paratrooper straps. So I think the watch does look fantastic on that. And recently, I've just really recently got into these Paratrooper straps, and I for one do actually love them. They are quite convenient. I think the fit on them is really good. But that orange, obviously matching the orange, and it's like these Trooper straps were made for this watch. Yeah, I really do think they look fantastic on the stainless steel and also on these straps. What I'll do, I'll put a link for these straps into the description. So if you do feel like getting one of these, get yourself a Paratrooper strap as well, just to give you that bit of versatility. One point which, to be honest, looking at this watch, it's just popped into my head, and it's going back to this whole you know, adding their own little touches to these watches. The dial, yeah, I think they could have improved the dial. It's a little too flat for me, regardless or not if it's the same as the genuine watch. I think they could have improved it by just adding 3D indices possibly, and even making it that slight bit of sun ray they have. So with the other colors, with the other models, with the SD1971, you do have, and the 1970, the blues and greens they're using, they've got a slight sunray pattern, and I would have liked for them to also have upgraded that, as well as the other upgrades mentioned. Would I buy one? Yes, I would. So I would like to keep one of these, ideally. The crown, can I live with it? Well, you're gonna have to, aren't you, if you keep one? So if you buy one, but I think the other things I could definitely live with, and I think it is a really nice, you know, homage of something different to Seiko's. So the subs out there that did recommend that I get one, thank you very much. I've enjoyed reviewing this watch. I've enjoyed having this watch as well. I think it is a very decent timepiece. Okay, that's it for the review. I'm going to add the link for the watch on the Aliexpress store below in the description. It will be an affiliated link. Get a little extra, get a little commission from Aliexpress. It won't cost you any more. It's just a thank you from Aliexpress, obviously, for me recommending them and you buying through me. I think we all know that anyway, so we all know how the commission side of it works. So I shall see you soon with another review. As always, subscribe, like, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.